joining us right here on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line to tell us about that one time that Belichick kicked Vinatieri in practice is Willie McGinest. How are you, Willie? You there?
I am. How are you guys?
Yeah, that was a strange time, right? When Belichick just went up and kicked Vinatieri and said, "Why don't you make more kicks?" That happened, right? Back in the day.
You know what's funny, man? That actually happened. It wasn't Belichick, though. It was Parcells, and he used to do some little funny things to Adam to try to throw him off.
Come on.
Like before he kicked field goals, and he would go up, throw grass in front of him, kick the dirt in front of him, do little stuff to kind of throw him off before his field goals, because we would always have something pending on the long field goal in practice,
Yeah.
Whether it was time off, no meeting or whatever, but it was in a loving way. I don't think it was anything, any harm meant to it. It was just a distraction, I would say, to try to throw him off.
Because, I guess you just got to, in some way, shape, or form, make adversity part of practice, because that's what's going to happen when real games happen. So that's stuff I've heard about from coaching. All this other stuff that is coming out of Jacksonville through our colleague Tom Pelissero over the weekend, and then obviously in the months before it, and then this past couple of 24 hours that led to Urban Meyer's firing. I'll give you the floor, Willie McGinest. What do you think about all of this when asked, as I am?
Not being in the building, I'm sure there's things that go on, and I'm sure there's a lot of other things that'll probably surface. But I think there's a code of conduct that you got to, represent yourself in a certain way. And I think that's what, Mr. Khan was talking about when, after the bar incident happened, he said, I expect you to hold yourself and be accountable, and represent the organization, the team, yourself in a certain light. And I think when you're not winning games, Rich, when things are surfacing like that, people in the building are not happy. When you possibly have lost the locker room, I can't say that's what happened, but if you possibly have lost the locker room and your voice no longer happens, and the players are not following you, it's bad. It's bad, and it's hard to continue to move on this way. And when you start to factor in all the different things that were happening on top of not winning football games, it pretty much makes it tough to move to continue on the way you have been.
Well, let me just ask this question, Willie, because, was there a time before Brady became Brady in 2001, in that 2000 season, when it was difficult to buy what Belichick might have been selling in the manner in which he was selling it, because he had yet to win anything and Parcells was Parcells? Was there ever a moment where the Patriot way might have been, up in the air before it was fully formed? Willie, did that ever happen?
Belichick's first year, I think we went 5-11.
Mm-hmm.
We went 6-10, whatever the record was. But we were losing a lot of really, really close games, and we were competing. And I think as a mature veteran or a guy in the locker room, you understand a rebuild, and when things are changing, a changing of the guard, you got to be able to implement a system, implement players that believe in a system, that fit what you're trying to do. And, Belichick made it clear that he was going to keep a certain type of player that fit that. And outside of that, he was going to build through the draft and free agency to make up, the nucleus and what he wanted as a team. So we bought into that because he was on that staff before. We knew he had success, with the Giants, and he also had success in Cleveland. I played against him in Cleveland. They beat us in the playoffs. So it takes time, but it also, you have to see things working. Players have to buy in. They got to believe. The preparation, the hard work, everything that goes into it. You got to see the fruit of the labor. And I think although we didn't have a great record, we were losing close games on little things that we can fix and change. So after the season, I was the biggest advocate going out to guys that were free agents like Roman Pfeiffer that I worked out with and telling them, look, man, you're a free agent. Come to New England. We got something special cooking. Trust me, man, we're going to be good. And he's like, man, your record wasn't good. I might want to stay home, play for the Raiders, whatever the case may be. But he finally listened to me, and his agent reached out, and he had a conversation, and it was the best thing that ever happened to his career. You know, he won multiple Super Bowls the very next year. We went in the Super Bowl mode, and all those guys that listened and believed were a part of that and made it special. You know, so I think there's an opportunity if the message is right, if things are moving in the right direction, if the atmosphere is clear, if the players can buy into that. I do think you don't have to have a winning record to get things turned around.
Yeah, Brockman, read him those numbers to refresh his memory.
Yeah, Willie. So 5-11 in 2000, but 9 of the losses by 1 score.
9 of the 11 by 1 score.
There you go.
1 score. So how often is it, though, in the NFL where game over, you're a team that's successful, which you've been on more than most, and then the other team that's not, you know, towards the end of a season comes up and says, you have no idea what's going on over here, and they unburden themselves to you after a game? How often does that happen in the NFL? Will?
A lot. It's a lot. Like, I talk to a lot of players across the league now, and you know, my relationship with those guys is special, so I don't want to blow anybody up.
Of course.
But there's teams that are losing now, and I talk to some of the players, and they're like, we have no idea what's going on. You got guys that, you know, going in different directions. The coaches are all over the place. Like, it's not a team. You know, I was a part of that in Cleveland, you know, from my personal experience. You had a small group of guys that wanted to win, that was doing everything they possibly could do to win football games. Other guys are going out, partying, wouldn't study, wouldn't go to film, coming into meetings late. You know, we get beat by 25 points. They go out and party that night. The losses didn't mean anything to them. It's evident. And we had a great coach who come from a winning background in Romeo Crennel. He knew how to win. It's just we didn't have enough mature guys to buy into it, you know. And, you know, he was handcuffed by the GM at the time where he couldn't go out and just grab those type of players that he wanted to bring in because he didn't have the power to do that. So, you know, there's a lot of things that factor into it, Rich, but the guys in the locker room know. You know, the coaches know. And if they're not all buying in, if guys are talking behind each other's back, if the coaches ain't on the same page and there's no cohesiveness and guys aren't together and the message, you know, isn't fluid throughout the building, everybody's on the same page, it's not going to work. It's just not. You can have the best system in the world, whatever it is. If the players don't buy into it, it's not going to work at all.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.